What's up, everybody? How we doing? Happy Friday. Cheers, everybody. Good to see you all. Just waiting on Chase. Want to say thank you to everybody who's been donating to Saint Vitus on Kickstarter. Well, my name is David Castillo. This is the Age of Quarantine. Man, we're getting close to 50 episodes. And yeah, it's been great. And we got Chase from Gatecreeper with us tonight. So strap in, have a drink, do whatever. And we'll have a great old fucking time chatting with one of death metal's best frontmen. I hope everyone's been safe and cool and everything like that. And yeah, it's been pretty crazy, but we're keeping busy over here and, you know, just trying to make the best of everything that we can do. And like I said, you know, thanks again for donating to Kickstarter and everything like that. It's really been helping us out. So yeah, cheers to you guys. I see Chase over here just joining up. Chase, just hit the invite button or send the request to me and then we can get started. Here we go. Waiting. Connection. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. Welcome to the Age of Quarantine, Chase. Thanks for taking some time out and hanging out with us today. How's it going in Arizona, man?
It's hot.
Yeah, brutal from the last time that we talked. So I'm going to just, you know, start the interviews the way that I've been starting all these interviews, which is basically, if you weren't home, where would you be right now, Chase? Do you have any idea?
What is it, May 8th? Yeah, I think I would actually be home right now. We were supposed to be on a tour that was like from mid-March to mid-April. And then at the beginning of this month, we were supposed to be in Mexico City playing Domination Festival, but I think we would have been home right now.
Got it. All right. So kind of in between tours and stuff like that. So that's sort of a natural look. I wore my finest Zero sweatshirt.
There we go.
repping this culture. So yeah, man, I just we'll start at the beginning, man. You know, I like to start off with earliest kind of memories of music and stuff, because I think that's where I think there's so much influence in like your really early life in terms of, you know, what you become. So what were kind of some of the earliest memories you had of music? What was the first times that you were kind of like, hey, I find myself being, you know, drawn in?
The Beatles. Like my dad got me into the Beatles. His family, like his brothers and sisters and stuff, growing up, they really liked the Beatles. And I remember watching the Beatles movie Help a lot when I was little.
Yeah.
And my dad even eventually got me like a little fake acoustic guitar. I would like pretend to play along, and I knew all the words to all the songs. And for my 3rd birthday, my dad took me to see Paul McCartney. So that was, the Beatles were a big one. And my dad was always really into music. He didn't really play music. He could play a little bit of the guitar, but he had a big collection of music, like a lot of CDs at the time, and he would always promote music to me or like encourage me to get into music. Like growing up, we'd be in the car and then the radio would be on, and he would like quiz me, be like, "Quick, who's this?" You know, that sort of thing.
REO's.
Yeah. So he got me into a lot of music that way. And then by the time I started getting into my own music, I mean, it was still pretty early on. I was probably only like 7 or 8. My dad taught me how to tape songs off the radio. Have a tape in and like have record set with the pause button pushed. And then as soon as I heard a song that I liked, I would, you know, hit the pause, unpause it real quick and record whatever was on the radio, like Ace of Base or whatever the fuck was going on, making my own little mixtapes. So, yeah, my dad helped me get my dad kind of encouraged me to find new music or to really dive into music that I like. So
Yeah, that's definitely cool and interesting. Just kind of how the origins of those things open up. Like Tony Iommi's favorite band famously was the Beatles too. And so it's just an interesting way of like kind of jumping off and being like, oh, this is how we engage. Talking about the radio, I always used to listen. There's a radio station in New York called Q104.3, and now it's a classic rock station. But back when I was younger, it was like alternative and grunge and stuff like that. So like I would be there like ready with the pause button, like, oh shit, like here comes this Stone Temple Pilots song, or like I need it, or a Soundgarden song, or whatever.
yeah.
What was there any kind of kind of outlet or anything too that you kind of gravitated towards, like a record store, a radio station, anything like that was like, this is my shit?
Yeah, we had that similar sort of radio station. There was the Zone for Arizona. We also had the Edge, which is like the alternative station. And then at night, actually only on Sunday nights, they actually had a thing called Ska Punk Night, and it would be like 3 hours or something. And that, when I started getting into that sort of music, that was huge for me, and I would record it. So we definitely had the radio stations like that. But I think because I just turned 33, so right around the time that I was really getting into more like underground music stuff that wasn't on the radio, was right around the time of the internet where you could start downloading music. So it worked out really good.
I'm a little bit older than you. I'm 37, but that was definitely kind of like the advent of things, because I remember the internet kind of like how we know it today, not the dial-up kind of slowpoke stuff I had in high school, really happened for me like in college. And then that was like the big, obviously, kind of watershed moment and stuff. But you were saying that the ska punk radio was kind of like the earliest stuff. So how did you kind of start getting into that music? What was the way?
I had a cousin I think he's like 7 years older than me. And he played in a band. He played in like a punk band, and he also skateboarded. So I looked up to him, and like I got into a lot of stuff through my cousin. So those things kind of went hand in hand. I think we've talked about before, like skateboarding and punk and everything. So
yeah,
when I was like 11 or 12, I started getting into both of those things, and I fell down that rabbit hole of both of them at the same time.
I think that skateboarding introduced me to so much music. I mean, my family is from Colombia, so I'm first generation Colombian. So I didn't grow up with that much English spoken music, right? Like only the biggest stuff, maybe like the Beatles. My brothers were into like Zeppelin, but like nothing kind of beyond like the kind of the biggest stuff. I remember I saw Welcome to Hell, and that was the first time I ever heard Iron Maiden, and that was really, Brooklyn Banks, Jamie Thomas, like it's burned into my mind.
Yeah, all those videos, Jump Off a Building, Welcome to Hell, and then the Zero videos, Thrill of It All, Misled Youth. One of those had Slayer, South of Heaven, and I think that's the first time I heard Slayer was in one of those Zero videos. And also they had like Danzig and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was the first time I saw Jamie Thomas, I was like, who's this dude with long hair and a Misfit shirt on? He's like my new favorite person, like in the world now, based on ability and vibe. I was like, this is the kind of dude I want to be. So yeah, and it's interesting now, and that's like another point of getting in. Skateboarding for me was also tremendously huge in terms of finding sort of underground music and trying to be like, okay, well this goes hand in hand. If I want to learn a kick flip, I should probably go to a show, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
What was the progression of going from kind of punk stuff towards heavier music, and what kind of started leading you down that path?
Well, like when I first started getting into like skateboarding and punk, it was a lot of like skate punk, like the Punkorama compilations, like Epitaph, Fat Records, all that shit. I didn't really get into metal until a couple years later, because this was like in the early 2000s, and metal, at least the metal that I was aware of, or the kids that were my age that were listening to metal, was like listening to new metal, and I didn't really like new metal, so it wasn't until later. But I think I got through into metal through a different route than a lot of other people, or at least a lot of people my age. Um, I think I went from punk and then listening to like a lot more emo sort of stuff. And then with that, like there's like the heavier side where there's like screamo or there's like hardcore, metallic hardcore sort of stuff. And then through that, I got into metal, I'd say.
Yeah, that's a pretty circuitous route, you know? It's
Yeah.
interesting, I feel like, just depending on like who you were and what you were sort of listening to, what youth culture was at those different times, and then like, okay, what kind of presented to me. I mean, you're from Arizona and stuff like that. I'm from New York. I got New York City right next to me all the time. It's interesting how things kind of get to other parts of the country.
Yeah.
Internet, you know. I remember going to, Connecticut to visit my cousins, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty different over here than what I get in New York or whatever, you know. But they had Hatebreed, so
Yeah.
they're lucky. They got a big winner there. But
I was gonna say location was big because around this time I'm from Mesa, Arizona, which is like a suburb of Phoenix. But Jimmy Eat World was from Mesa, and this was like right around the time that they were, Clarity is right before Bleed America came out.
Great records. I like both of those.
Yeah, me too. And like Jimmy Eat World from Mesa was huge. Like they went to my high school. They're older than me, but they went to my high school. So that sort of world, like that early 2000s emo sort of stuff was really big where I was from. Like if you played in a band, like with your friends, like it was a garage band and you played house shows, it was probably an emo band. So for where I grew up, like that was very normal.
Yeah, and like kind of the paradigm of what local music sort of was for you. When you started trying to like engage in playing music and stuff like that, I mean, you play bass and you play guitar and stuff like that. What was your first role? Were you, as far as like starting bands and playing in them? What was the first kind of thing that you tried?
The first band I ever played in was when I was in 7th grade. I actually played the drums.
Oh wow, damn!
And I was not good. It was like pretty much a pop punk band. Like we covered Green Day, Brain Stew, covered some Blink-182 songs. And it was just some kids that I knew that like, oh, hey, you have a guitar. My brother has a drum set. So let's play these songs together. And then after that, I played bass in a band for a couple of years. But I started around the same time. I learned how to play bass and guitar at the same time when I was probably like 12. And I started writing music on the guitar, but I didn't start playing guitar in a band until I was about 18. Then I played guitar and bass. I played guitar and did vocals in a band for several years. And then now with Gatecreeper is the first band that I've just done vocals in, at least live. But I still play a lot of the guitar, like besides up until the newest record, I played guitar, a little bit of guitar on every record. I still write, me and Eric write most of the guitar parts. So I still consider myself to be a guitar player in the band, I guess. But just behind the scenes, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of Hatebreed, I know that Josta does a lot of the same thing. He writes a lot of riffs and stuff like that too. And although he's not performing them, he's an author of that as well. So hey, the Josta method works. So that's pretty sweet. So you've actually occupied like every different sort of station in the band. So just to know it from a writing perspective, I can imagine it'd be pretty advantageous for you.
Yeah. The way that we write music is pretty. We take advantage of technology. Like me and Eric will make our own demos in GarageBand, like program the drums out and everything, and send them to each other. So I think being able to play the drums at one point, or at least have an understanding of drums, helps me in programming the drums. So that I like to do it that way because you can kind of make a more complete idea of what you're trying to do rather than just like show up to practice and be like, hey, I got this riff. I can actually flesh out everything down to the drums. I don't usually record vocals on it, but kind of a more complete picture of a song that I want to do, and then I can give it to everybody else. And, Matt will do his own thing based on the drums that I have, or Eric will be able to learn the guitars, or a lot of the times me and Eric will get together and we'll kind of put the finishing touches on it together. So, because me and Eric, and well, two of the guys still live in Tucson, but when Gatecreeper started, we were split up between Phoenix and Tucson, which is about an hour and a half drive. So it's not too bad.
Brett has lived in Tucson and Tempe, so I know a little bit about it. It is quite a way.
Yeah, that's where I live in Tempe, and Eric and Sean still live in Tucson. So it helps to be able to do things remotely a little bit like that. Like, we're not really a band that gets together in the practice space and writes songs together. Like,
that's pretty fascinating, because it's interesting. You know, you hear bands from Arizona, and you're like, oh, they're all homies, and they like chill, and like, you know. But it's like, Arizona's huge, and it's a lot. It's the same sort of thing, you know. Like Torch does stuff similarly. We had Jonathan on here too, and it's like, Steve now lives in LA. He used to live in Savannah, Florida, and then they would come with like pretty formed ideas, and then before the record, they just jam for like 2 weeks to just kind of work out maybe some finer points and kinks, and then there you go. So yeah. Pretty interesting workflow and stuff like that. And you really kind of have to have a little bit more of a knowledge of other instruments and stuff like that. Do you find that when you guys are writing and stuff, does something become more of a Chase song, more of an Eric song, and stuff like that? How does that kind of balance?
I think so. I mean, I obviously can tell because I know, but like, say for Deserted, our most recent record, for instance, it's pretty much split up pretty evenly between me and Eric's songs. But there's some songs that I pretty much just wrote myself, and then there's songs that Eric pretty much just wrote himself, and then there's a good part of it that are songs that me and Eric wrote together. Whether our styles are a little bit different, and also our methods are a little bit more different. Like, when I write a song, I tend to complete it, where Eric will write a lot more than me. And he'll send me a bunch of stuff, so I can be like, hey, I like these parts of this song, and then I'll write something with that, and then we'll work on it together. So I think anybody from an outside perspective wouldn't be able to tell our different stuff.
It's kind of mind-blowing to me, because it feels so cohesive. Like, I feel like Gatecreeper has kind of a sound that's very much kind of like your own, or, you know, that you guys have crafted so much, so to feel like there's these two sort of, you know, you got John and Paul, yeah. You know, and you're like, oh man, you know, but it all sounds like the Beatles to me. But
yeah,
that's a really interesting sort of point of view, that there's like that much of a different polarity. Let's go back a little bit to when Gatecreeper was sort of first, you know, kind of starting out, right? So this is the method that you guys have probably refined over time and stuff like that. But what were the beginnings of the band like? What was the mood and the tone to be like, hey, we're doing Gatecreeper, we're doing this sort of death metal? And how did you kind of come to wanting to make that music and get to that point?
So, like you mentioned earlier, like, you know, it seems like, oh, from Arizona, everybody's homies. I actually didn't even really know any of these guys before we started the band. I had met Matt through a mutual friend. Matt and Eric were both living in Tucson. We met at a show. He played in band Territory with our friend Sam, who I'd known for a while. So I met him, and I think, you know, I had whatever shirt on I had, and he was like, we started talking about death metal, because the band he was playing was like a hardcore band at the time. And so we started talking about death metal at a show when we met, and then we saw each other at another show. Started talking about it again. Like, I told him I've been trying to do a band like that. I had just got sober, and I hadn't been playing in bands for a couple of years, just because my life was kind of getting in the way. So I was like, I'm trying to start a new band. I'm trying to do this. So I ended up going down to Tucson and jamming with Matt, and Matt's roommate at the time was Eric, and I hadn't met Eric. So he's like, yo, my roommate plays guitar. He wants to play with us too. So I remember texting with Eric, and he just came up to Phoenix one day when I was living in Phoenix. He rolled up, he had like a cowboy hat on, like cowboy boots, and he was just like, what's up? We literally never met each other before, and he's like, what's up? Let's play. So that's how it started. And it was just me, Matt, and Eric for a while. And And when we recorded our first EP, like it was just the three of us. It wasn't even a full band. So,
And what year was that around? Like 2013?
yeah, 2013 is when the band started. Yeah.
Nice. All right, cool. So then it was just kind of like, it's almost like fresh start for kind of your life in a way, because you're pretty open about, you know, your sobriety and things that had happened and stuff like that. And it felt like now you're not getting in your own way. And then all of a sudden these folks kind of come into your life and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to actualize this idea. It's funny how that kind of happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, now I'm presented with this. When did it start kind of feeling like, okay, like we really like what we're making here. Mm-hmm. We want to put a lot behind it. And when did you start feeling that kind of, was that like a really early thing, or was that something that kind of came down the road a little bit?
Honestly, as soon as we wrote those songs for the EP and we recorded it, and then we just put it up on Bandcamp. I think this was April 2014. Mm-hmm. And it kind of took off from there. Like pretty quickly, it's like circulated around the internet. And also, I've pretty much since it started, I've always just like gone for it, you know, like I think it helps me to stay busy, especially during that time. I was like, I got to stay busy, you know? So I just would like write a bunch of emails to people, like a bunch of blogs that I download music from, be like, yo, we post this, you know, just hustling, you know?
Yeah.
So we hadn't even played a show yet. So as soon as that EP went out, and immediately it was like, we got some labels offering to like put it out on vinyl and CD and tape or whatever. And eventually we got some shows booked. So we put together a band, like Sean, who plays bass, who still plays with us, joined the band then, and then we had another guitar player. So things were already going before we even started playing shows. So it took off pretty quickly, and then I just never stopped hustling, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, I think that it's a kind of a really interesting point. It's like, I think that sometimes people kind of take it a little bit slower and kind of in a hobbyist perspective, but then if you just, you know, you just put a lot forth, it's amazing what can happen with the work ethic. And the work ethic shows, right? Like, I know the bands that are busy, I know the bands that are doing stuff, and I know the bands that hustle, that grind, you know. Gatecreeper wasn't the top of the bill all the time, you know what I mean? But if I would see Gatecreeper on a tour, I'm like, that's a great opener. That's somebody that I want like involved, because I'm like always seeing their shit and doing that. And I think that's very important for people to know. Like, the ethic has a lot to do with the success of the band and what they're doing. Very early on, I feel like you guys also had a really strong visual identity, which, you know, kind of has grown over time with the personality of the band and from release to release. But do you usually curate most of the art and who you work with and doing stuff like that? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I've always done that. That's something that I enjoy, and it's something that's really important to me for the band. Not only just the music, but also like the visual aspect of it. So it's not anything necessarily unique or new. You know, it's just trying to like pay respect to the classics that that we're influenced by, whether it's like the colorful painted album covers, just like the classic death metal records that I like, and then the more like black and white zine sort of stuff just looks like the classic death metal zines or like demo tapes or anything like that. So I actually learned how to do that stuff, the Xerox stuff myself, just for the band. I eventually I've used it for other things, whether it's like flyers or for other bands, but at first I knew that's what I wanted it to look like for Gatecreeper. So at first I hired other people to do it, but then eventually I was just like, I'm gonna figure out how to do this myself. Or I asked my friend that did a tape layout for us. I was just like, how did you do that? You know, I've been trying to make it look like this in Photoshop, but it's not really working. He's like, yo, you got to do this. You got to go to Kinko's. You got to go to Staples and like do this, blah blah blah. So eventually, just figured it out myself.
Yeah, and got that to that aesthetic. Have you done every single one of your album covers, or have you worked with somebody else?
I've never painted any of our album. I've never done actually any of our album covers. I've only done a couple of shirt designs, but I definitely curate all of it. We've I think all of the record covers are all done by different people. It's kind of fun to find new people to work with, or I think it's a cool way to collaborate with other artists. You know, like being music a musician and collaborating with other visual artists is something that's really fun. Whether it's just like a t-shirt design, because I've made a lot of friends that are, you know, illustrators or graphic designers. So it's like, hey, you want to do a shirt for us? You know, it's probably why we have so many t-shirt designs, because I like working with new people. So.
Sure, yeah. What are the things that can you shout out a couple of the artists that you work with, so just people know, and like who are some of your, you know, your homies, maybe Dave?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, Bib is a band that I did art for. But Brad Moore is the guy that did our most recent album cover. He's really cool. My friend Dean, who is from Rhode Island, he's the one that actually kind of taught me how to do the Xerox stuff, and he's done several things for us. My friends Jess and Colin from Arizona. You might know Jess from Destruction Unit.
Love the dude.
But yeah, those are guys that are from here that have influenced me, or I've worked with several times, and I think that they're really great graphic designers and have been an influence on me for that sort of stuff.
For sure, for sure. So when you, just to take it back to kind of like, you know, when the band is starting to, you know, you're getting all this attention on the internet, the demos circulating around a lot. Oh, what's up? You got the dog in here? That's the dog. Mine abandoned me for another dog bed. I got like my house. So, you know, what was it like? Maybe did you feel like you guys had some expectation? Like, fuck, okay, a lot of people like this, you know, this demo and stuff, but we aren't quite season playing out yet. What was that kind of being like to kind of become this live band? Because Gatecreeper now is a force when you.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think it definitely helped that we've all played in bands. I mean, we're all by the time we started the band, we were all like in our mid to late 20s. We'd all played in bands, several bands previously. I think everybody was competent at their instrument. So as soon as we got together, even now, like we don't even really practice that much. Because we live in different cities, but also like, you know, as soon as we get together, whether it's, you know, hey, we have a show coming up, we got to practice a couple of times, or we have a tour coming up, everybody works on their own to keep everything tight. So as soon as we get in the room together, like we're ready to go. So
there's a lot of trust in that too, right? Like
yeah.
I expect you to come in here being ready to go. It's the way that you guys work.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, Matt, our drummer's like, he's a crazy drummer. He practices playing drums more than anyone else that I know. Everybody's just a good musician. So, I mean, it's probably a good thing that I don't have to play guitar in the band, because I can't say that about myself. But I think, you know, as soon as we started playing shows, like we had really crazy shows. Not crazy, but like our first show with Undergang. Our second show was like with Skeleton Witch, Black Anvil, and Ghoul, I think, was the tour.
Oh yeah, I remember. I actually saw that tour in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so that was like our second show in Phoenix, and it was one of those things where like we were opening and they made us start playing like before the doors were even open, you know, like as people were coming in. So we definitely, you know, and like you mentioned earlier, we had to work our way up. You know, things happened pretty quickly for our band. I recognize that, but I don't think that there was a lack of, you know, grinding. You know, like you said, we started at the bottom, like whether it was on shows or on tours. You know, we were like 1 of 4 or 1 of 5. And then
it's 2020 now. We're talking about 7 years ago. 7 years isn't like some short amount of time, you know. Yeah. Just to think about anything, much less, you know, being a band. You guys committed to doing a lot of touring. Was there ever any kind of what was the discussions like about that? I mean, you guys said that you guys are pretty ready to kind of do this sort of early on. So is it just kind of like as the opportunities are coming, we're ready to take them and do more and more?
Yeah. I mean, we got lucky a lot of times. We got really good opportunities. Surprisingly, everybody, for the most part, still works at home. They have their own job. Like some pretty normal jobs, some abnormal jobs, but just our first couple of tours we just booked ourselves. Like I booked our first tours at my day job at the time. And once we got a booking agent, we've gone through 2 booking agents, but we started doing our own tours, and then we started eventually getting asked to do like open on tour. I think our first like big package tour was actually with Skeleton Witch, Iron Reagan, and Oathbreaker.
Yeah.
So, and then from there, like I think we got a good reputation for being a good live band, but also on the other side of it, like on the behind the scenes, we got a reputation for being like a responsible band and a good band to take on tour. Like we weren't late.
This is what I think a lot of people maybe fail to realize, right? Like, especially if you're in bands or whatever, anybody who's watching, there's 2 sets of things. When we go to work, meaning me and you, Chase, when we go to work, right? It's like, I got to put these guys on the stage, and Chase has got to play, and then the fans got to come in and they have to have a good time. There's a lot of different things. We have to work together in a good way, and then the whole tour has to work together in a good way. And then the day of, the fan experience, everything else has to work too. So there's kind of two couple different sets of things there. And I think that shows a lot, not only that there's a good momentum behind a band or something like that, but like you're saying, being either just like responsible or a grinder or good. And you're like, you know what? Yeah, this band's sick and they're like about it. Let's give these guys an opportunity. Mm-hmm. As opposed to maybe someone's like, they're kind of difficult or this or that, the other thing. Then perhaps that doesn't happen. So you guys felt like you were getting a good reputation. The hustle was paying off.
Yeah. I think one of the highlights of that sort of stuff paying off was touring with Cannibal Corpse, because we actually got on that tour because when we were on tour with Skeleton Witch, our first record just came out, Sonorum Deprivation. So this was in 2016, and Alex Webster, bass player from Cannibal, lives in Portland, and he came to the show when we played in Portland, and we were all like, holy shit, like that's Alex Webster, and we were all kind of freaking out. I got a CD and I walked over to him. I was like, hey, take the CD, and he was like, nah, I already got it. And I thought he was kind of like, I hadn't met him yet, so I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't want the CD, but he's like, no, I already have it. It's in my car. I've been listening to it. Relapse sent it to me or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. I thought he was being nice, but then he was like, yeah, I like this song. I like this part of this song. Where I was like, damn. All right.
Yeah, he was like educated. He was like, no, dude, this riff here, that's really tight. That's
So I was like, So I was like, all right.
Like that, right? Like you're on the road, you're like, okay.
Yeah. So then a couple months later, we got offered a tour with Cannibal Corpse. And it was us, Power Trip, and Cannibal Corpse. And on that tour, we were talking to him about it, and he was like, Alex Webster was like, yeah, we were talking about bands or who to bring, and he was like, I brought up Gatecreeper because I see you guys tour all the time. I see you guys are willing to tour. I've seen you guys play live, so I know that you guys are a good band. So he like really fought for us and got us that opening spot on that tour, and it was great.
And cool for them too that they're plugged into music and stuff like that. People can be jaded, after doing something for so long, no matter how special it is. And it's awesome that a band like Cannibal Corpse, with the legendary stature that they have, is still, down with the underground, looking at things all the time. People ask me all the time about getting on shows and doing things like that or whatever. And sometimes it takes a lot. It takes songwriting and music and that craft, but then it takes another kind of as you would say, the hustle game of it all, and to really start making some noise. When this was all happening with Sonorum Deprivation, which is a phenomenal record, man,
thank you,
were you like, wow, okay, this is sort of panned out a bit, like this is the momentum that we need? I have, I'm opening for Cannibal, things are happening. What was that kind of feeling, that sort of payoff of kind of hey, like I'm here kind of doing it.
I mean, I think we just have consistently and even still keep having those experiences where we're just like, wow, like all these goals that we have are things that we didn't even think were possible. Because for the Cannibal tour, that was like we were already assigned to Relapse, so signing to Relapse was a big thing too. We were just like, wow.
Yeah.
Um, I remember calling I remember calling Matt, our drummer, and being like, yo, we just got an offer for Relapse. Like it just seemed like so crazy at the time. And I think that we just consistently had different experiences like that where it was kind of like, oh, I can't believe this is really happening. And the Cannibal thing was just one of them. So.
Yeah, totally. What's it like kind of embracing those things? Because, I definitely, I read, I believe, an interview when you were like, we kind of want to be, I believe the term, it was a good one, stadium death metal. Like, we want to be like a bigger, like a death metal band that can be accessible to like a lot of fucking people. And you brought up Captain Corpse, that sort of thing. And I really, I'm of the same sort of mindset. I think heavy music's for everybody, and I think that there's no. I had a real big problem like 10 years ago when like heavy music was just never really looked in the same light as maybe indie music or other music, like in the press or anything like that, of having quality and virtuosity, or even just being reviewed on like the same level. I thought that was like total fucking horseshit, and really offensive, honestly. And so I always, just kind of had this feeling. It's like, well, why not? Like in the 90s, these are, heavy bands are some of the biggest bands like in the world in the 80s, like, and what's wrong with sort of being that accessible? Or just like, can everybody just shut the fuck up and listen to this? And like, you listen to the visceral quality of this and you make the call, not industry or something of that nature. So what's it like kind of just accepting those things, or just being like, sometimes it'd be your own people, right? It'd be like, oh, this dude's over here, in some like really obscure, death metal t-shirt, and like, oh, Gatecreepers too. They're they're not concerned with us anymore, or gone to bigger things. How does that sort of feel? And just explain that a little bit, and like your feeling towards that.
I mean, I kind of had to get over that. I had to like get over it, or just not care what those people think anymore, because the bands that those people play in, or the bands that those people like, I like all that stuff, like I'm friends with a lot of people in those bands, and I'm probably friends with a lot of people that think my band is fucking whack, but that's fine. Like I had to accept that, and like not be limited by what a certain, what will these people think if we do this, or like, will this super underground elitist sort of person think about what we're doing, because that, if you get caught in that, it's just kind of like it's a whirl, it's just like a circle jerk. It just will eventually just drag you down. You may get the approval of those certain peers or whatever, but that's not what I want to do. Like, that's not what we want to do with this band. Like, I don't want to be an obscure death metal band. I want to be a death metal band, but I want to be, if that means that we can be a gateway band, like if we're the first death metal band that someone likes, I would rather that than be the band that like only the most elite know about, that doesn't have any interest in me, even though, again, like I love those bands. I love like death metal demos and all the super, obscure, like lesser known deep cut death metal bands, and we were even influenced by a lot of that stuff. But I think that we can take it in a different direction. And I know that there's a certain, there's a ceiling for death metal, and Cannibal Corpse is a good example. Like, if you're going to be a straight death metal band, like Cannibal Corpse is probably the ceiling,
I think that's fair.
But I think that you can do that. I don't think that there's not going to be another Metallica. I don't think there's even going to be another Slipknot. I think Slipknot might be the last of the huge metal bands. Maybe not, but there are bands, whether it's like Lamb of God or even Amon Amarth, bands that somehow find a way to take metal or extreme metal and make it a little bit more accessible. And I think that we're trying to do that without watering it down at all, or without doing something that we feel uncomfortable with. We don't want to do something that's cringy just because, it's going to have more people like your band. I want to kind of make it happen organically. But I think with songwriting and maybe going in on a couple different aspects of it that maybe people don't recognize, kind of like we write a lot of our songs in like the classic pop or like rock song structure with like verse and choruses and all that. Because we don't have like sung vocals, it might not be super apparent to people. They might not even pick up on that's how the songs are structured at first listen. But I think that's what your brain wants to hear,
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like that hasn't like been done before. Like Wolverine Blues, it's like a hook machine. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of Cannibal Corpse, a lot of the even like Fourth Crusade or Bull Thrower, things of that nature. To me, it's like kind of when like death metal went a little bit more rock, but like it still retained the really heavy qualities. But like in the songcraft, it kind of changed a little bit, and that's when it was really, I feel like at its heights of like at least popularity to a degree. And that's a far cry from Left Hand Path, Wolverine Blues and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But it's kind of cool to me that that's sort of a band that wants to take it that way. As much as like I will, I like a lot of other kind of shades of extreme music and things, that we probably like a lot of the same bands and stuff like that. It's cool to see a lot of these things breaking out. How do you feel about the fact that actually just death metal as a genre in general, outside of Gatecreeper, seems to have just a renaissance in the underground, right? Like when we opened Saint Vitus, it felt like black metal was everywhere, and there was black metal that, whatever you want to think about that's fine, So, but it was sort of everywhere, and then doom, a lot of those things, and it feels like death metal is sort of having its day right now. How does it feel to kind of be associated with a lot of different acts sort of coming up as well?
I think it's cool. I would say that this resurgence sort of started a while ago, but in the last couple of years, it's definitely gotten even more attention, which I think is cool. It's definitely good for our band because people are paying attention to death metal again. One of the negative things that I think, well, it's more just a little bit annoying for me. I think it just happened to be really good timing. But you definitely have those people that will accuse you of being like, oh, they're posers. They're like just cashing in on death metal being cool right now, But I think it kind of happened coincidentally that the timelines lined up. So it's good and bad, like we don't want to, you don't want people to think that like, oh, we're just playing death metal because it's cool right now, We started playing death metal because we wanted to play death metal. We started playing old school death metal because that's what we like, and that just happened to be eventually, during our time as a band.
In 2013, like I was saying, in 2013, that was not what was like in vogue at the moment, and just like, mainstream music, things of that nature, the underground goes in different cycles as well too. And I usually think a lot of it is more organic than people think. I think that it's not easy to be a good band, and it takes some time to be a good band. And so like you could have some talented people, but it'll take a little time, and also just to work the whole machination of it, just to get the band bigger, present it to people, write records, get them out there, tour, do the thing to kind of get it there. We're talking about, 5, 6, 7 years worth of time. And if a bunch of different bands do it, then you're like, oh, we can all kind of look over here and make this a thing. But it's definitely not the easiest. I want to say something real quick to our viewers. If you have a question for Chase, put it in the little question box right there. You could type something in, and before we end, I'm going to get to some fan questions and stuff like that. So, Deserted came out not too long ago. Reaction to it was great. I thought that the artwork for that was so fucking wild too.
Yeah.
Really, I think playing on the theme of the desert and
Yeah.
the psychedelic nature of the desert and taking it like one step further. I feel
Mhm.
like you guys broke out of like the lexicon of kind of stricter death metal imagery there,
Yeah.
which I thought was really cool. Was that like a really conscious move?
Yeah. We've definitely been going heavy on the desert thing ever, since the beginning, really. I've said it a million times, but like, I think it's cool to be from Arizona, not only just because that's where I'm from, but I think that's unique. There's not a whole lot of bands or death metal bands for that matter that when you think of Arizona, you think of, oh yeah, that band, death metal is huge in Arizona or whatever it is. So, it's like, yeah, we're a death metal band from Arizona. Like we're proud. I think the desert's unique, a unique climate. There's a lot to draw influence from. We're obviously influenced by it because we all grew up here. Um, so yeah, I've tried to like throw that into both the visual aspect, lyrical aspect, themes on everything, just because it's cool and unique, and I don't think it's. I think that it can be just as like menacing or dark or whatever it is than anything else you could write about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that one of the things that I've always loved about maybe like hardcore metal, different things, is regional styles and sounds, right? Like, I'd be like, oh, this is Swedish death metal versus Floridian death metal versus,
Yeah.
or this is DC hardcore versus New York hardcore, all those sorts of things. I think that you guys bring that, that kind of like a flavor in presentation and in delivery that it's like, it's really heavy, but there's something kind of psyche about it in a way too, and cool. So yeah, I really kind of enjoy that and that kind of experience that you kind of impart through that. As far as just kind of moving forward, so obviously you guys are on a tour cycle for Deserted and stuff like that. What's sort of the state of the band at the moment and stuff like that with everything that we got going on? Is it hunkering down and writing? Is it, hey, I'm going to skateboard and wait to see if the world straightens itself out? What's the move?
Both, pretty much. I mean, Deserted just came out in October. We got to do one that co-headlines for with Exhumed. Yeah, but we were pretty much planning on touring for this entire year on that record. Um, but the first tour this year that we had, got canceled, and even stuff that we have planned all through the rest of the year is like not looking so great either. We're supposed to go to Europe this summer. A lot of those fests are already getting canceled or rescheduled. We had a headlining tour that was planned for the fall. That at one point I was like, oh, it's far enough away, it's going to be fine. But I mean, with the venue, like, it looks like things aren't going to happen for the rest of the year. I hope that's not the case, but that's what it's looking like. So we have been writing. I've been writing songs. I've had an idea for a project or like a release that I want to do. That's like before we do our next full length. That I've had the idea for a while. So once this started going down, I was locked down. I'm like, all right, now's the time to do it. So I've been writing for that. I've actually been trying to write every day, which is I haven't done in a long time. So it's just like I'm gonna write today. I'm gonna write a song today, and even if I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world, like I'm gonna get something done today. And
Sure.
tomorrow I'll start it up again. I'll do something else. So it's a little bit different approach. It's like a little bit what we're working on is like a little bit of a different style for us, which is fun and interesting for me to do something a little bit different. So yeah, we've been working on that, and
Not
everybody's kind of gone back to their jobs. If they have a normal job, they're going back to that. I haven't had a normal job for a while, but I have other hustles and stuff that I do. So I've just focused on doing that sort of stuff. We haven't really seen each other, but
yeah.
we haven't really seen anybody else. So I've been trying to stay away from a lot of any sort of like performance related, like live stream sort of things so far. There's there's a few that have caught my attention, but for the most part, I'm like, I don't really want to do that. It's not really something that I want to do.
Yeah.
Even though, because people ask you that all the time, like, oh, can't you live stream your practice or something like that? Which I guess you could do, but if we do something like that, it's going to be very specific.
Sure.
Going to be very.
It's good that you're being just productive, right? You're trying to do the things that you can do, right? And I think that that's where all our minds are at, and hopefully, as things reopen and stuff like that, we'll have like a better view of what that is. So we got a bunch of questions down here in the comment box. So I'm gonna.
Can I see them or just you?
They'll pop up on the screen too.
I don't see it.
Oh, here we got a tuning question. What made you guys choose drop B as your tuning? From Marcus is canceled.
I don't know. I think my band that I played in before, we played in drop C, and I can't remember if we just went into this with drop B or if it was like Eric's idea or my idea, but I don't know. People hate on drop tuning, and I understand that, but that's how I learned how to play heavy music. So, yeah, I like drop B.
Organic. Got it. This is just a very straight. How tall are you?
5'10".
How tall?
I'm 5'10".
Dude, me too, man. Side by side. Twin average. Here's one. What are some of your side hustles from Butchered?
I run a couple. I do graphic design. I run a couple online stores. I actually just started one with Eric, doing country shirts.
Yes, I did see that.
I do a store called Realm of Comfort. I do sweatpants and stuff. A lot of it is, bootleg, unofficial, unlicensed sort of stuff, which I tend to thrive in the gray area of life. So doing stuff like that it's a lot more legal than what I've done in the past. But that's where I feel comfortable doing. So I just, I like the hustle. So that's cool. A couple of them.
Yeah. All right. Understood. Realm of Comfort. Check that shit out, everybody. Here we go. This is a good one. What is the hardest song to perform live for you? Lord Jimmy Cantu.
Ooh, Jimmy Cantu. What's up, Jimmy Cantu? Hardest song to perform live. Probably of our current set, probably Boiled Over.
And that's a kind of like a big song for that record too.
Yeah. It's not a fast song, but I think comparative to the other songs, there's a lot of vocals. Like I tend to write the vocals where it has a lot of space to breathe. Like the riffs have a lot of space to breathe. I'm not singing super fast, and I'm not even really singing that fast on that song. But there's just a lot of vocals. There's not a whole lot of breaks in between. So I think in our current set, that's probably.
I actually noticed that when I first heard it. I was like, we're filling in a lot more, and I mean, I've sing in bands too.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh man, it's digging in here. There's there, and that is cool because like the approach is a bit different, you know. I mean, used to like, and then like riff,
yeah,
something, you know. But you were filling in a lot more, so I can imagine, you know. We all have to breathe up there, believe it or not. We have to breathe to continue the fucking show. So it's not all just bopping around and doing whatever. Oh, this is the question, Chase. Why did you decide to grow a beard? The mustache is gone, everyone. The mustache is gone.
All right. Well, I guess part of the answer to that question is why I grew a mustache in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew a mustache in the first place, not because I thought that it looked cool, but because when we were on tour, my lip would always get fucked up. I don't know if you've had this experience, but like when you're doing several shows in a row, the microphone would like rub up on my lip, and then it would like get almost like a rash, and then I would be like, my hair would be growing in, and I'd be like ingrown hair or something on my lip, and it just happened tour after tour. So I'm like, I'm gonna grow a mustache, a little protective layer between me and the microphone.
That's fucking hilarious. I never
So,
knew. And you also have that style where you use the
yeah, I'm up on it.
stand a lot too, so
Yeah.
it kind of points down.
Yeah.
I have, like some chipped teeth
There
because
we go. I've gotten close. I've
like
gotten very close.
like
Um,
like this, like the no mic stand thing.
okay. Yeah. I'm a little bit
But
stationed.
that's interesting. So at first it's form and fashion, and now we're getting to the beard. What happened with the beard?
So Mel. And then during the pandemic, during the quarantine, I was just like, I'm gonna grow a beard. I was kind of sick of the mustache. Really, I don't know why. I feel like I was rocking it for a while, and then I was like, I'm just gonna grow a beard.
Looks fucking great. So we got on the age of quarantine. We know that Chase has a beard, and George from Dev Evan has a blue manicure. This is the show that you need to fucking tune into because we get the hard questions. Oh, he's gone. The dog. What happened with the dog? Is the dog okay?
Yeah, no, he was trying to leave.
Trying to leave. Gotcha. All right. Let's see. Oh, there's a question just in the comments. Do you like lasagna? It's a great question.
I do, but I don't eat cheese anymore, so
I see. So
lasagna is ruled out right now.
Yeah. All right, here's a go. What band or artist are you currently obsessed with? From Matt Slusser.
Ooh. Right now, I'm really into this band or this record by Jigsaw Terror. They're a band that they only put out one album. I think is always cool when a band just puts out one album and it's really good. Jigsaw Terror, and
anything else too, even old stuff. Throw in a couple of the end with like quarantine records anyway. So
I'm trying to think what else. I've been really diving into a lot of like southern like Memphis rap, the tapes, mixtapes. So it's like a lot of stuff that I have to go through and download, or like you can only listen to on YouTube. Stuff that's not on Spotify. Mournful Congregation, the June Frost, is a record that I've consistently been obsessed with. It's probably one of my most listened to records of all time. I've been listening to that a lot lately. I don't even know. It's hard off the top of my head.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I find myself kind of these interviews, honestly, I start listening to people that I'm going to interview like week of, so it's kind of been like a fun exercise too.
Yeah.
Oh man, I haven't listened to Zola Jesus in a while, or Daughters, or next week I Hate God, and I'm like, damn, God, fucking good, like it's a great way to remind myself all these different things that I kind of like. So a little Gatecreeper in the queue will be good. So Chase, we got about 2 minutes remaining. I just want to say thank you very much for coming on, taking some time. Don't get too overheated in the 102-degree dry heat in Arizona.
Yeah.
And get your skateboarding in when you can. And can we get the dog's name real quick before we go?
His name's Bodie. He's named after the kid from The Wire.
Oh, dude, I love Bodie, man. I'll give you a quick story because we're going to leave in 20 seconds. One day I'm running to work. I was working at this bar called The Cove, right? And I'm literally like walking really fast. My head's down, New York thing, right? And I'm walking like this. And all of a sudden, this little dog kind of like veers like right into my lane. And so I stop short and I look up and it's fucking Omar.
Yeah.
The actor Kevin, he lives in Williamsburg. Running to work, I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm like, yo, dude, sorry, I didn't mean to. Oh shit, and I sat there, and he's like, it's cool, man, and I'm like, cool, I can't be late to work, like I looked at him for like, and then I was like, boom, I'm out. So
should have got a pick,
dude. I mean, I'm saying. So thanks a lot, Chase. Really appreciate it. Take care of yourself. Stay good, and we'll talk soon.
You too, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, guys.